Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction. The talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Sibyl Krebs. We'll be discussing actually her late husband's book, William Charles Krebs' Dream World, Tales of American Life in the 20th Century. That's going to be available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you guys want to get the full experience of everything that Sibyl has to offer, go directly to her and her husband's personal website, williamandsibyl.com. That's traditional spelling of William and SIBYL.com. So one more time, that's williamandsibyl.com. And Sibyl was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. Parchment Global Publishing. If you have a book that you'd like moved, well, move it through Parchment. You can find them at parchmentglobalpublishing.com. And guys, I'm so excited to have Sibyl here on the line with us because the book we're going to be discussing, Dream World, Tales of American Life in the 20th Century, is a great book, really. And, you know, it's such a good book for all ages, but especially young adults. Listen, it's a love story, okay? And it really is about young love, right? And the roller coaster that young love tends to take us all on, right? Being past that point now in my life, I can think back on all my earlier relationships, and, you know, I wish I would have had a book similar to this to really kind of instruct me, or at least make me aware of what was to come, because, as I stated, it is a roller coaster. Listen, Sibyl is the expert on the matter itself, so let's go ahead, let's bring her here on the line with us. Sibyl, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest today with us on People of Distinction. How are you?
So I'm fine, and you're welcome.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we are very, very much looking forward to this. Now, before we jump into the book itself, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself, and not only about yourself, but of course, this book was written by your husband. So tell us a little bit about him.
Well, my husband was a graduate of the University of Chicago. He majored in business because if he had majored in English or geography or something where it was teaching, he wouldn't have qualified to get a job in Chicago because he wasn't a Roman Catholic. And his sister went through that problem, so that's why he majored in business. But he was an avid reader. As a child in his buggy, he wanted a book. He wasn't interested in toys, and he read all of his sisters, who was 9 years older, all her textbooks. So that's how avid a reader he was. And I wasn't allowed to be an avid reader, but he got me being an avid reader. And I did all the typing, although I wasn't a typist, and I did the editing of the book. And my sister, who happened to be a trained journal proofreader at our Donnelley Sons, where my husband and I both worked, she did the proofreading.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's jump right in. Dream World, Tales of American Life in the 20th Century. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, it's about a young couple who live in different states, sort of north, I think it's Ohio and Michigan, and the girl wants to be away from home for a year of college, and it was the junior year. She had to go to where she went because there was somebody there she knew, and she knew their family. So she got permission to go there, and then went to the college in that town. And the boy just wanted to become a little bit independent, to make his own decisions, and he drove with friends to that area. It was his car, but he wasn't interested in the beach scene that they were interested in. So he actually got a job. So she got a job at Dream World, both of them. He lived with an elderly woman as a roomer, and he could have his meals there, and he did a certain number of hours of maintenance for the yard and taking out the trash, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she got living with a couple who were retired but liked being with young people because the man had been a counselor and the woman had been a teacher. And so they met and started courting. But then after a while, things went wrong. I don't want to go into the details of what all that was, but a month later, Willie realized he'd made an error, so he had to do the job of winning Liz back. And so they so happened, she had a tour as a guide at this dream world, and it so happened that Bill's family and her family were coming at the same time, and his mother maneuvered to make sure she was on a tour so she would meet the girl. And it turns out both families were there, and they met, and they had lunch together. And they got on fine. But then they bet Liz's family had to meet the problem girl, so did the others, and none of them liked her. And they were pleased that he wasn't really interested in her. And then from there on, he just signed up at got the word from her where she was staying, what class she was taking in sociology or something, and signed up for that class. But then he had competition. There was a man that was pretty well-to-do financially.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually sort of used Liz when his parents came, like to give a free tour on her off time and tried to take time out of her studies. And but anyway, then he tried to get her to move in with him, but she really gave him a lecture on the subject that's very amusing. So that's up to the reader to find out what that is. And they both go home for Christmas, and Bill and she go on the same plane to start with, and he has to change planes part way because he was going to a different location. And after they came back from vacations, then they really started to get together again. And at the end of the book, they're engaged.
Now, talk to us about...
But what Bill did, though, what he did in preparation, he wrote down every character and their personality traits and how they spoke, so they would be consistent through the whole book.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what helps make it such a success.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely lends a lot of credence to him as a writer, by going out and putting forth that work to make sure that his characters were fleshed out and consistent. I think is a remarkable thing that he did. Now, Sibyl, talk to us about the title, Dream World: Tales of American Life in the 20th Century. Now, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, again, we know what it will revolve around, and we know what it will slightly at least consist of. Dream World. Now, you made reference to the fact that one of the characters worked at a place called Dream World. So that...
They both ended up working there.
Gotcha. So that is something that is referenced in the book. That's a physical place that is significant to the book itself, correct?
Right. See, the thing is, we had gone down to Orlando for a vacation the February before he started writing it. He never let me know he was going to write it. And that gave him ideas. And that sort of got the ball rolling in his mind to creating all the characters in the story.
Fantastic. Here on the line with Sibyl Krebs. We're discussing her late husband's book, Dream World: Tales of American Life in the 20th Century by William Charles Krebs. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at their personal website, williamandsibyl.com. Now, Sibyl, as we continue on, talk to us about inspiration or your husband's inspiration? I mean, you talk about how he was just very much an avid reader, right? So this is something that was probably within him from a very early age. Something, and it probably started off as a hobby that he loved to do. But what inspired him to write this particular book? And also, what inspired him to become a writer and embark upon a creative journey of that magnitude?
Well, I used to be in charge of shows for Episcopal charities at the church. Mm-hmm. And the first one I planned, which was all British, the next one, somebody from Germany planned, and that didn't go over quite as big. And I put Bill in charge of the programs, every one after that. And he would write the script to go in between to create the story with the performers doing the singing. Mm-hmm. So that's where he first started doing the writing.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's really where it kind of started. That's where the inspiration began.
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, why did he feel that this was a book, this book in particular, Dream World, why did he feel that this was a book that needed to be written? And it wasn't just something that stayed as an idea.
He never told me. He never told me. I was astounded when I was typing it, how it flowed and how it went. Mm-hmm. Because I hadn't realized he had that much skill, because we hadn't had that much opportunity to see it.
Absolutely.
But it worked out great.
All right, Sibyl, this is all absolutely incredible. I mean, thank you so much for sharing. Now, this is, of course, a fictional narrative, right? So your husband created this, on this journey. Now, one question that I'm curious about, what was a highlight for your husband in writing this book, or maybe a surprise for him in writing this book, if you know any? Because I guess technically you wouldn't know. Again, you didn't realize he was writing this book until he was done with it, correct?
Because I was working full time. I was working, and he started it several years before he retired, and did a lot of writing after he was retired.
Mm-hmm. So, really, in terms of this, I mean, what would you say is a major theme or a core message that your husband really wanted to make sure his viewers knew or were aware of? What was he trying to say with this book, Dream World?
I think he was trying to, it comes out the girl is Episcopalian, I think it is, the man was Presbyterian, mm-hmm. But there's a religious feeling in it, and it was basically quite a moral book, and except for the thing that went wrong. But he mentioned that it shows that there's a lot of good people, because all the characters are really pretty good, except for the one.
Wonderful. Guys, one more time, here on the line with Sibyl Krebs. We're discussing her late husband's book, Dream World, Tales of American Life in the 20th Century. Now, it was written initially by William Charles Krebs, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through their website, williamandsibyl.com. Now, Sibyl, as we tie up this interview, really, why was it important for you to make sure that you continued to work on your husband's book and really publish it and put it out there for the public?
Well, I was approached by Office Press, and I'm pleased with their work, because the previous publisher did not help me price the book, and it was overpriced. And, of course, I wasn't able to do the promotion because I was taking care of him. Mm-hmm. And then it was the right time they approached me to get me to do that, to promote it.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to promoting this book, I mean, what's next for you? What's in store? Because your husband has written more books. I mean, this is the only one that's published, but he's written other books as well, correct?
There's 3 more.
And in terms of the other titles, What are the plans for those? Are you planning on publishing those as well, or we're going to end with Dream World?
Eventually, I want to. The next one's on the engagement year, where they're back home in their own territory for the senior year at the original colleges.
Beautiful. So the other narratives are sequels to Dream World.
Yes. Then the next one's on the marriage.
Beautiful. Sybil, this has been absolutely incredible, and we are so pleased that we were able to get you here on our show, People of Distinction. Guys, listen, do yourself a favor. Head directly over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or to WilliamandSibyl.com and pick up your copy of Dream World, Tales of American Life in the 20th Century by William Charles Krebs. Sibyl, this has been absolutely a pleasure and such a delight. Thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you.